The MultiPod hits the road and attends the Everything Conference of 2024. I'm your host, Ted Cragg, and I'll be reporting live from Minneapolis, chatting with multi-potentialites from around the world as we share the energy, enthusiasm, and stories of this wonderful event. Thanks for joining me. Let's jump in. Hello, dear listener. This is the MultiPod. My name's Ted Cragg. I am the producer and one of the hosts of this podcast, which has been around since the beginning of 2018, 6.5 years, which, let me tell you, is an eternity for a multi-potentialite. But here we are, mid-2024, and the podcast is still going strong. The MultiPod explores the lives, the interests, and the stories of multi-potentialites, generally members of the Puttyverse, so that we can get to know more about them and their perspective on multi-potentiality. Our episodes generally combine conversations about that topic, how they discovered the Puttyverse, and the type of activities they like to participate in there. But then we often have other topics that we focus on too in each episode. It could be a language, it could be travel. We've talked about tiny homes, computer science, artificial intelligence, writing, creative design, all kinds of interesting and varied subjects, which makes the podcast a great snapshot into the lives of multi-potentialites. In all this time, 6.5 years and over 100 episodes, we've managed to do 3 recordings that were live in person instead of over the internet. Well, that's all about to change with this mini-series that's going to share with you as best as possible the experience of being at the Everything Conference 2024 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The Everything Conference brings together multi-potentialites from all over where we explore that theme and figure out strategies and inspirations for how we can best live lives as multi-potentialites, where we encourage each other to be ourselves, to embrace how our brains function, how we approach life in this way, where we don't have to explain what it is and why we make these choices, why we can't commit to that one thing. We know why we do it. Life just has so much to offer. And we want to experience as much of it as we can in all kinds of varied ways that stem from the multiple interests that we have and that we want to act on, that we want to pursue. At the Everything Conference, we explore how to do that, to give ourselves more systems, more structure, more ideas, inspiration for how to really live fulfilling lives as multi-potentialites. Now, this is the second Everything Conference. The first took place in September of 2019 in Portland, Oregon. It was an event that introduced a lot of people to the concept, also introduced a lot of people to each other because they met in person for the first time, and was a real landmark event in this community and also maybe the broader community in general, because it's not everyone who attends the Everything Conference that's a member of the Puttyverse. By any means, it's very much an event that's open to anyone who takes an interest and really resonates with that theme. So to finally bring people together, a good solid number of people in one place for a weekend in a beautiful place like Portland was a really deep and meaningful occasion. And over the last 5 years almost since, we've heard so many people reflect on the experience of being there and how it changed their lives, how they found that inspiration, how they made different choices and commitments, made connections for sure, took on new projects. It was either exposure to the idea and the concept, perhaps for the first time, or I think probably for most people, it was a reinforcement of who they are, who we are, that we're okay to live this way, that it makes sense, there's a place for us, we have incredible strengths, and we can really be there to support each other. And this is the spirit that for sure is going to return here for the second conference, and as you know, this time it takes place in Minneapolis. Now, in September of 2019, I was working at my job at the time, which was a historic canal, a historic site in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, a seasonal job, a very multi-potentialite job, because I didn't have to do it year-round. I could work there 6 months of the year and do all kinds of other projects and fun things the rest of the winter. But what it also meant was that when I worked. I was there 6, even 7 days a week. I'd work 60 hours a week to pack in as many hours and basically make as much money as you can while the season was open. And that meant I wasn't able to go to the first Everything Conference. And of course, I heard lots and lots about it afterwards, met some people online who were there, saw lots of pictures. I got some sense of what it was like, but I remember thinking at the time, I just really wish that I could have a sense for what it felt like to be there. What was that experience really like to be present with so many like-minded people, so many wonderfully positive and supportive people? What was the energy like in the spirit? And of course, it's something that you can only really experience and understand if you're there in person. But I remember that weekend as I was stuck at my job thinking, I just wish I could know what it's like to be there. So here we are, fast forward, almost 5 years later. We are doing the Everything Conference again. When they announced the dates and the location and everything, being in the middle of summer, now I've moved on from that job and I work in podcasting, which is remote. I can work from anywhere. I can make my own schedule. Again, wonderful career choice for a multi-potentialite. And my wife's a teacher. My kids are off school, of course, in the summer. And they said, go, this is your chance to go. Take a weekend, go to Minneapolis and meet your friends. And I'm overjoyed. I can't wait to meet people in person that I've known online for years, 4, 5, 6 years. I've been in the Puttyverse for 7 years. And fortunately, I have met a handful of them in person, but this is just going to be at a whole other scale, all kinds of wonderful people that I've known quite well online, but I'm going to get to meet in person here. And I know a lot of people listening who are going to the conference were feeling the same thing. But in turn, that's the thing. This made me think, well, I completely understand the people who aren't able to be there for whatever reason. Of course, there's all kinds of logistics and practical reasons why they can't make it to an event like this. And that's okay. But now I am in the very fortunate, privileged position where I can go and I can do my best to share that experience with you through the MultiPod, through our podcast that exists for this very purpose, to share the lives and the stories of multi-potentialites. What greater opportunity than the Everything Conference to go and do it in person? So this is what I'd like to do for you in this mini-series, is try to document some of the events, the activities, the workshops, the hangouts, the conversations, the atmosphere, the ambience of the Everything Conference itself. You may know it's taking place at the McNamara Alumni Center at the University of Minnesota campus, which is basically right in the middle of the Twin Cities area between Minneapolis and St. Paul. It's very central. This should allow us, and I want to do this as best I can, to explore the city. I've never been to Minneapolis or St. Paul. I'd like to learn as much as I can about life there and things to see and do, the geography, the layout of the city, what it's like to visit the Twin Cities. That's going to be part of this too. Because just like in Portland, the place that we do these things, I think, is as important as the actual programming, the actual events. So my goal here is to share as best as I can, as much as possible, the experience of the Everything Conference with you, to bring you along, to meet lots of great people, and share in that spirit. Now, in that spirit, one person, and there's many for sure, but one person that came to mind who I knew would do anything to be there if she could, is my good friend Sonia de Vega, who lives in Portugal. My family and I visited Portugal last year. We spent 3 months there, and the highlight of the trip was going to see Sonia at her house and meet her family. We stayed with them for a few nights. She's a wonderful host. I know there's a number of people in the Puttyverse and the broader community, really, who have had that opportunity too. They've been able to go and meet her in person too. As Sonia will tell you here in a few minutes, she certainly considered it. She really strongly considered, if it was possible at all, to get over to Minnesota to get to the conference. At the end of the day, it was a question of timing and the dates. Her oldest son is getting ready for university. They're busy trying to find accommodation and make sure everything works out. And it just wasn't a very practical timing on her end. But I knew she'd be someone great to chat with in advance of the conference starting, because she's someone who would want to be there and would really appreciate that opportunity to be with so many wonderful people and meeting great friends in person. So we decided, well, let's chat for a bit, and she can tell me some of the things that she would like to know about, to hear about, voices she'd like to hear, activities and workshops, and a general feel, a general ambiance of the event. So she's given me some instructions of things to look for, people to meet, people to talk to. And in that sense, Sonia kind of represents all the people who aren't able to join us in person, but I hope will be following along and listening in to feel a part of it, because I really want you to feel a part of this too. I understand so well what it feels like to not be able to go. So this is why I want to do my best to keep you included as well. So this is going to be a little mini series of the MultiPod at the Everything Conference. It'll be a mix of some longer conversations, the style we typically do here on the podcast, and for sure some shorter snippets and observations, some thoughts. You'll hear little sound bites from people. As I say, hopefully we'll be able to walk around the city a little bit and put it all together. So to kick things off, Sonia and I talk about the conference itself, her instructions for me, and we really start getting into that spirit. We're just a few days out from the beginning of the Everything Conference. The timing is great. We're all getting excited, so let's get into it. I am really happy to be joined by my good friend Sonia de Vega, who's joining us from Portugal. And how are you today?
Fine, thank you. It's cool, so I'm good.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I'm staying cool too. Yeah, this is part of the fun of talking here in the middle of summer. And I guess that comes back a bit to the Everything Conference being in the middle of summer, which adds its own element, I think, to the experience, because the last one was in September. And yeah, the weather helps to indicate the kinds of stuff that we're going to do there for sure. But as you know, I'm very appreciative that I do get to go to the Everything Conference this time because I missed it last time. And part of my mission in the MultiPod here in this little mini series is to do my best to really kind of share the experience and the energy and the spirit of it as much as possible through the podcast with everyone who can't be there because I know how that feels. Now, I think you mentioned that you thought about going, obviously, if you could, like it
Yeah,
was something that you certainly considered, but obviously there's a lot of practicalities, logistics, and so on. And
yeah.
I mean, you're coming all the way from overseas if you do. So we're talking here. It's a few days before the Everything Conference starts. And how are you feeling about the event? Are you still paying attention to it? Is it something that's on your mind?
Paying attention. It's not only on my mind, but on my calendar.
Okay, neat.
Because like I might not be going, but I'm there, like I'm thinking about it and I'm totally curious. And like
Yeah.
it's something that if it happened in September, maybe we could have managed, but like,
Mhm.
it was harder. And I'm really, really sad I couldn't make it.
Mhm.
So yeah, like totally curious to know, like, of course I'm still way far from the Joel number of hugs kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm really, really below that, but it would have been a nice attempt to try to hug everybody. But yeah, like no, like I don't even know if people like to be hugged. So that is the thing, that if you could tell me like who likes hugs
Okay.
and who doesn't,
Yeah.
so I don't do any faux pas when I meet them. So yeah, that would be cool.
Yes, that's good. I'm on a bit of a mission here to find out these things and report back.
Yeah.
Is so and so a hugger and how many people are and try to keep track of all that.
Yeah, and like how tall they are, because like when you
Hmm.
visited, I was like, wait, you're really tall. So some people are surprises. Like Joel says he's 6'6", and everybody knows like
Yeah.
conversion and he's tall. So like, how is everyone else?
Hmm.
And some people you meet in the huddles,
Yeah.
and you have their voice and sometimes their face, and but people that you only know by the chat, via chat,
Yeah.
like how are they?
Hmm.
What do they look like? How fun are they or not? So yeah.
Yeah. And the sound of their voice. Yeah.
Yeah. And if they laugh a
Hmm.
lot, if they just giggle, that kind of thing. Very important stuff, of course.
Yeah. This is
Yeah.
it. This is the fun. It's that kind of subtle stuff, the fun of in-person meetups
Yeah.
when you have something in common with people, the people there. And I mean, I'm going, but I've said it before, and I'm sure it'll come up again through this little series that the number one thing I'm looking forward to is finally meeting people in person that I've known for like 5 or 6 years or something online. We've never met in person. There's a couple of people there I've met, but there's so many, and that's the thing I'm just so excited for. So yeah, and then it turns into, wow, this is a real person like right in front of me, and you get the body language and just the way
No.
they communicate and the spirit and their energy and everything. It's a very lucky thing. It's a fortunate thing to be able to meet people in person like that.
Please enjoy it as much as you can.
Oh yeah.
It's like you're doing it for me as well. It's your quest to impersonate Sonia.
Okay. Well, it helps that I've met you, of course, in person. So,
True.
so that's the thing. You meet someone in person in an event like this. There's certainly be some people I've meeting for the first time, and I haven't met online, but a lot of them I have. And so it's like, I know we have these things in common. Maybe we've
Yep.
done like projects or huddles and stuff like that together, right? So you're already starting with something. There's that kind of connection or foundation to the relationship. And then it all comes together when you're there in person.
And it's also a chance to create deeper bonds, I think,
Hmm.
because it's one of the things that brings people together is like eating together or doing things together, activities, and
Mm.
sometimes just like staring into someone's eyes, like without a screen in front of you.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so you have a fair bit of experience with this in the Puttyverse. There's been a number of us who've had the opportunity to come to you, to come to your place, or at least meet up in the city or something like that.
yeah.
So I know that that's part of why I wanted to talk to you in particular. I mean, you're very active in the Puttyverse, and lots of people know you, and they'll be happy to say hi to you, I'm sure, through my microphone, and you'll hear it here. But yeah, your home there in Portugal, and even Portugal in general, is a bit of a hub, I think, for a lot of travelers and people in Europe. If they can, they swing that way. So you've been able to meet a few people in person yourself.
Yeah, I would really like to meet more people, and because I know that my ability to travel is limited, I always invite people to come over because it's way
Yeah,
easier. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And of course, like I remember when you came on your trip to Europe, you recorded like the sounds of the places.
yeah.
That would be awesome. Like if you just could
Mm,
hear like the hub, because like we are not there. There's no chance the workshops are like shown in the Polyverse or everything. So like if we
right.
could hear just like snippets, that would be so
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Okay. I'll do my best for that. I mean, that's part of it. Now, again, as we're talking here, is a few days before they've just released the schedule, the actual programming schedule of the conference. And there's a number of kind of workshops, interactive events, speakers, but it's all very interactive. I mean, as anyone listening knows, whether Joel, Vanessa, Corey, everyone putting this together, like it's kind of an unconference. It's a non-conference, even though it's a conference, I guess. It's very interactive. So we're not just kind of sitting in chairs with someone like up on stage doing their thing for 20 minutes, Q&A, then we go for a coffee break and come back for the next session. Like it's not really like that, even if the schedules kind of reflects that, but each session itself is so interactive and spontaneous, and who knows where it'll go or where it'll lead. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting events coming up. I should pull up schedule here actually. Let's see.
Oh, and before I forget, please hug Annie and Heather for me
Sure.
because like I would love to. So thank you.
Yeah, and that'll be two hugs, of course, because there's two perfect examples of people I've been, so excited to meet for years. I mean, I've known
Yeah.
Annie for years. We've chatted so much online and talking about projects and comparing ideas and stuff, and we're going to be there in person.
Woohoo.
So yeah, there's some really interesting things coming up. There's some workshops about how you think and feel about money, relationships, work, love. David Delisle's leading that one. He's a fellow Canadian. There's the thing about letter writing as a tool for growth, improv for everyone. Get out of your head and into your life. I'm happy to be leading. You'll be excited about this. I'm leading the in-person offers and needs networking session. Yeah,
So
I know.
cool.
Because Sonia and I do this in the Puttyverse online, of course, and with thanks
Yeah,
to Zoom, we can facilitate that. But it'll be a whole different experience doing it in person with the actual post-it notes and people milling around and
exactly.
breaking off, have little conversations. And
Take some pictures so we can change the pictures of the event also
oh,
in the
that's a great
Bodyverse.
idea.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a great idea.
so cool.
What else we got here? Walk and talk, 5-minute life stories. We're talking a bit about AI as your creative co-pilot. Christy de la Cruz, she's been on the multipod here. We talk about neurodiversity as your competitive advantage. I'm sure that'd be a popular one. Heather's doing a
Exactly.
couple sessions. John McKenzie will be there talking about travel.
Hug Christy too, please.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I'll have to give you a whole list. Okay, this hug is from Ted. This hug is from Sonia. This hug
Right.
is from yeah.
7 ways to become an anti-procrastinator. I think that'll be
Ooh.
handy for a lot of people.
Oh yes.
Thomas, our friend Thomas, he's been on the multipod.
Yep.
He might do some recording too. He and I chatted the other day, and he's got
Very
his
cool.
own podcast, so he might be doing some stuff too. And he's doing a session called Role Playing and Scrum for One,
Ooh,
harnessing focus creativity for multi-potentialites. Interesting.
nice.
Yeah. Hey, all this is just on the first day. This is on the Friday. So this is why I tell you, I mean,
Wow.
it's still kind of you in a way it's that classic conference thing that you got to choose. I was assuming you could maybe hop between sessions, but at the same time, you want to be present, I would think, in each one. So there's a bit of choices that have to be made, but I'm sure we'll chat about them.
But it's a hard choice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, what else we got here? There's themes of there's some yoga for sure. There's mindful self-care practices for overwhelmed multi-potentialites. Sounds interesting.
Nice.
Ryan's another one, Ryan Cena, who leads the Fortnightly. I'm
Yeah.
super excited to meet Ryan. He's doing the Fortnightly Live, which is the
Wow.
accountability session that he leads in the Puttyverse.
So
So he'll be
cool.
there. Um,
Another hug, please. Although I
okay.
do know he's tall. That one I know.
Yes.
Okay.
Vanessa's doing a great one. Vanessa Tharp, who's, of course,
Mhm.
co-hosting, co-organizing the conference. She's doing one, Find the Work That Sparks You.
Nice.
Uh-huh. And, of course, who do we want to meet more than Emily Wapnick herself, who will be there? And she's doing the astrology of your many passions. Hmm.
Ooh.
Now, this one sounds nice. This is Joshua Russert. He's doing the Aroma Lab, a sensory guide into memory and meaning, starring coffee. So if you like coffee, that would be one to go to.
Sounds intense.
Hmm.
Nice.
Now, another friend of ours, and this is, another great thing about the Everything Conference is that it's not just people in the Pottyverse going, of course, it's people from all kinds of different places and friends and different connections. So a friend of mine in the podcast, but who's not in the Pottyverse, is Marty McNabb. Do you know Marty?
Not sure.
I'll point you in her direction because she's got a fun podcast and she does
Oh,
lots of
cool.
interesting things. And part of her kind of ongoing project, is telling stories about things, generally physical things, I believe, but things that kind of trigger memories and just stories that come from your life. And she
Very cool.
travels around the United States, and at least often doing these little kind of sessions in various places she's visiting. So, of course, she'll be doing that too,
Very
telling your
cool.
story to our community through stuff.
Ooh, if I were to tell you the story of this computer, yes, so many years.
It's been around.
Yeah.
So my good friend Christine Lazada and I we're doing a session together along with our friend April on podcasting. We're going to do a little podcasting
Cool.
kind of action workshop to encourage people to start recording and learn what to do. She's also doing another thing about branding and social media for multi-potentialites, how to market the many things you do. That's
Ooh.
Christine.
That is very necessary. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Here's another friend who's been on the podcast. I've been fortunate to meet her now twice in person. Colleen McGraw.
Yes. Colleen, please.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll add her to the list. She's doing how to organize anything, organization strategies for people who don't want to get rid of their stuff.
Yes, exactly. Because it's not hoarding when you have multiple interests.
Yeah, that's just it. Yeah. There's a bunch of things, but they all go in different kind of categories and
Mhm.
sections and therefore places in your house.
Exactly.
Here's another session about writing for the love of writing and editing. And oh yeah, and then Annie's doing a session living the explorer's way. I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yes.
April again, April Schluter, who I just mentioned before, she's
Mhm.
doing another session of her own, Anti-Hustle Your Goals, Unconventional Productivity Strategies for the Busy Multi-Potentialite.
Nice.
Yeah. So all that's on the Saturday. We're still only through 2 days here.
I
I
mother
know.
of all gods. Like, how are you going to choose?
I don't know.
Are you going to mini, miny, mo?
Maybe.
Because that has to be hard. Because one thing is like when you go to a work conference and everything is about work,
Mm,
and you're like, if I miss that one, no problem because I have this one. But like, this is not work. This is like us in a
yeah.
nutshell. And as a multipod, you don't want to miss anything. So yes, like, how do you choose? Can you
Hmm.
clone? Do you have a cloning machine in the hallway? That would be nice. Think about that for the next TTC. Cloning machine so you can be everywhere.
Okay.
Yes.
Sure. Well, one thing I will ask people for sure is, how are you going to choose what you're going to go to? And maybe we'll try to figure out some strategies of how to, I guess, get a report back or get kind of a gist of the sessions that we didn't go to because you have
Yeah.
to choose. So Yeah, there's a lot of things where, of course, it's participatory, and you need to be there in person, but at least you get some feedback of what it was like and maybe apply some things.
Yeah.
So now, as we get to the final day, which is the Sunday, this is interesting. I don't know if they had to do this because of the building itself, but we only start in the afternoon. We start at 12:30 in the afternoon, which is kind of nice because that gives us the morning to, well, maybe sleep in or just have an easy morning. I would really like to see, and I'm really hoping I can do this, to see as much of at least the central parts of Minneapolis and St. Paul as possible. So that I feel like that's probably my only real window to go and do a bit of exploring around the city for, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours or something before the afternoon session starts.
Yeah, because that is something that I'm very curious about is like the actual
Hmm.
city and the fact that it's like in the tri-state area and everything. Like, how does that impact with people and buildings and whatnot? Like,
Yeah.
if it's like old buildings, new buildings all
Hmm.
at once, and like, how cool is it? Because like, if in the winter Joel can walk on the lake
Yeah.
with the ice,
Yeah.
so like, how cool is it now? Is it like polar bear friendly?
Oh, it's hot there. I looked that up too. Like it's the classic kind of hot, humid summers, and then of course freezing cold winters, which is very similar to where I live here too, in Eastern Canada. So I'm hoping to be able to rent a bike or do a bike share or something to explore
Oh,
around.
cool.
Yeah. But it is a fairly unique kind of place in that you have these two major cities. Of course, why they really make a point of calling them the twin cities. Minneapolis is a bit bigger population, but St. Paul's the state capital. It's the older city. So, they really balance each other. And I'm trying to think, at least the United States, if there's many other examples of something like that. So I'm curious to discover the difference, which I'm sure there are some differences and similarities between Minneapolis and St. Paul. Do they
Yeah,
really feel like distinct cities these days? They've grown so much that it's
true.
all basically one big city. But I think there really are two distinct urban centers, really, with, of course, suburbs and stuff in between.
Yeah,
But I'm curious to discover that. So that Sunday morning will be my chance, I think. So as we get
very
into the
cool.
last bit of it here on the Sunday afternoon, Rachel Alexandria, she's doing "Be Free to Be You." Oh yeah, let go of your ancestors' burdens and receive their blessings with family constellations. That sounds very interesting.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Justin Baker, he's doing multi-purpose, how to find purpose without choosing just one thing.
Nice.
Yeah, we've all been there. Uh,
Exactly. We all need that once in a while.
yeah. Hannah here, she's doing how to make something from nothing.
Ooh,
And then we end with Kathy Leroy. She's doing caregiver conversation circle. Yeah.
important. Yeah.
And then we wrap up the last kind of session here is Amy. She's doing campfire conversations, which I would imagine is around not a real campfire, but at least the spirit of that. We'll see. But a nice way to wrap it up.
Someone needs to get a guitar. And
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, so cool. Ooh, ooh. And another thing,
Uh-huh.
please, I would really, really like to know if Joel goes around barefoot the whole time.
Oh, yeah. That's a good question.
Exactly. Like,
I'm sure he will as much as possible.
how clean can the cities be? Because if he goes barefoot all the time, that it has to be like great cities. So yes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I met
Very
Joel just over a year ago. He came to Montreal with his wife, and I was able to pop into the city, and we hung out for the better part of a day. And yeah, he was walking around the city sidewalks as much as possible without any shoes on.
So yeah, like it's those little quirks that you learn about people, and then you're
Yeah.
curious to see them in action. Like,
Neat.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. This is
yeah,
exciting. Like part of what I want to talk to you was like, give me some ideas and focus and those little things. Like there's so many of them, right? But
yeah,
to really, so I know what to look for, and that'll kind of trigger some other things I think to keep an eye out for as well.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's the program, and that's all just kind of the formal stuff, that's on the actual agenda between generally 9 to 5 type thing. In the evenings, we're going to have other social events, and those are still being slowly, steadily put together and organized, and maybe reservations and restaurants and things like that. So there'll be more happening too.
I do hope you have a dance party because if
Yeah.
I got to go, I would organize one. So I hope there's a
Okay.
dance party.
There is. I know that there's a dance party coming together on
Yes.
the Friday night somewhere. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So, anything else comes to mind that you want me to look for, or that?
Share like what you feel like. I don't know, like what you smell, like with the coffee session and everything, like the smells, the sounds. I don't know, the feeling.
Yeah.
Because we are not there. Like even if there was a recording or something, we wouldn't get those hints.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. It's a sensory thing because I mean, this will be audio. I'll probably do a couple little video things just so you have some visual. I think that's important, but I don't want to do the entire thing in video and be walking around like with the
but
selfie stick and all that.
When you were describing your visits in Spain, for instance, you were very sensorial. Like we could be there, and because you had the sound and everything, like it felt like we were there with you.
Okay.
So if you can pull that off, because you've done it before, so I know you can. That would be awesome. We will be with you in those mics that you will be carrying you to the people just to listen to everything.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's really the spirit I want to bring across.
Very cool.
Oh, good. Well, thanks for doing this, and we'll reconnect for sure afterwards. And
once you have completed your quest to bring us to the ETC without being there. Yes.
Yeah. And then you can let me know what you think.
Yeah. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
Honestly, Ted, like it's really cool.
It's my pleasure. Great. We'll talk more soon.
Yeah.
Join me tomorrow. I'm going to be catching up with my MultiPod co-host, Vanessa Hennessy. Her and I take turns hosting the show, sometimes together, sometimes we each take a turn with a guest. And we're going to talk a bit more about some of the opportunities here for the podcast, for the MultiPod, of the type of things that I can scope out and capture for you this coming weekend. Vanessa, too, I know she would love to be there. Unfortunately, she can't make it, so she'll be following along, just like our regular listeners, and trying to capture some of that vicarious spirit of being at the Everything Conference. So that'll be a quick conversation coming out tomorrow, Tuesday, July 30th. I'll have a last final update for you Wednesday, July 31st. And then the next morning, I'm off to the airport. Now, in order to get these episodes out as quickly as possible, I'm going to be posting them on YouTube. Audio only, unless I happen to record a bit of video too. But that's where I can basically publish it instantaneously. Now, of course, the podcast has its regular feed, its podcast feed. You can find the MultiPod in any podcast app, and Apple and Spotify and so on. It's just that the way we have it set up, these daily episodes won't necessarily show up right away. And as you can tell, this is very much an in-the-moment experience, so I really do want to publish at least a little bit of stuff every day. So the places to find that is going to be either directly on Libsyn, which is our podcast host, or a little more easy to find, more accessible, will be on YouTube. So you'll find today's episode, tomorrow's, and all the other ones this week there on YouTube. And then as soon as possible, we'll get them added to the podcast app as well, especially some of the longer conversations that I expect to have, the ones that are more like 20, 30 minutes or more, where I can sit down with some people in person. I can't wait. So I'll talk to you some more tomorrow.